Oh man, this is an honor. This is the most famous guy I know right here. You can see him on Fox News, OWN, Glenn Beck. Man, folks, there's no better champion for our industry than this guy coming up. Them lights are bright. I'm glad I ain't got to stand up here for an hour and a half. Shad Sullivan, everybody. He's a great friend, a great champion for our industry.
Oh man, those lights are bright. Goodness me. We're gonna talk a little bit today. It's really hard to follow up a guy that has his best-selling book and a PhD, and I don't even know what I want to be yet. So you'll have to bear with me. But today, I want to do a little social experiment before we get started. If you served in the military or had family that shed blood for this nation, would you stand up, please? Look around the room. Look around the room. These are the people who have sacrificed so that we can live in a free country, right? These are the people. Now, there's that group. Now, if you're under 20 years old and you're here today, will you please stand up? Look at there. Newell, South Dakota FFA, thanks for coming. All of these young people, but we can see that there's a stark difference between the young and the old. And our goal here is to serve both sides, right? So today, we're going to talk about being all in on the war on beef. Now, I'm probably going to make some of you mad. Sorry. I'll run out of the room, go get drunk, and then you can kick my butt, okay? But we need to talk about the real things, the real issues. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I want you to remember one thing. Everything you've been talked to today about, it comes down to this, and it's the land. The war on beef is about the land, ultimately, because all that we learn, we cannot do it without the land. All right, so let's go. Let's get started. We're all in on the war on beef. If you don't know me, my name is Shad Sullivan. I'm just a rancher. I don't have a high education. I'm married to my beautiful little wife, Thea. We live in Texas, but I'm actually from Colorado. And we have this little boy named Beatty Lane who, hey, I'm up here. I can say what I want. He's the light of my life. I love him. We ride for the brand, and we love Jesus and America. We're not going to apologize for that. This is my homeland, right? Antelope Mesa, Northwest Crowley County, Colorado. 9 inches of precipitation a year is what we get. But that's where I was born and raised. My family's been there over 126 years. I show you this because I want you to understand that I am a rancher, and my perspective in everything I talk about is in production agriculture. This is my place in Texas. We are a stocker operation. This is just a stopover between a guy who sells me calves and our place in Colorado, Archer County, Texas. This is where it all started. And isn't it funny that today I speak about liberty and freedom? If you know me, which all these guys know me pretty well, you know it's all about liberty and freedom for me, because liberty and freedom is directly tied to the land. I was born and raised at the foot of Pikes Peak. If you didn't know what that was, that's America's mountain. Like I said, we're a stocker operation. I buy a small calf out of the south, bring them to our operation in North Texas. We grow them through the winter, and then we send them to Colorado. We also have a small cow-calf operation in Texas. Everything born into that, we sell to the public. And that has been a great blessing since COVID. As you well know, COVID was a train wreck for all of us. But if there was anything good that came out of COVID, it was that we were able to connect with the consumer and take a bit of that away from the big four packers, which you've heard about a million times. As you well know, I am the private property rights chair here at RCAF USA. I love RCAF. I love the people. I love the staff. They're all so good, and I appreciate you very much if I never get to tell you that out in public. So let's talk about why I'm here, which is the war on beef. The war on beef, what is it? It's an attack on the Charters of Freedom, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. It is a hijacking of your personal liberty, and you need to understand that. We have to ask ourselves the questions. Who is waging the war on beef? How are they waging the war on beef? And why are they waging this war on beef? It's very important to understand this. So we're going to start at the very top, go to the bottom. I want it to be simple. I want it to be understandable. And most of you know this already, but we need to organize it in our minds. And so that's what I've tried to do here for you. So we start at the very top. And who is waging the global war on beef? You know, we see it everywhere. Well, you have to start with the global elite, the elitists, the global cabal, the people that we all hate or we've all heard about all of our lives, right? The old guard of the global elite, the cabal, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, DuPonts, Kennedys, the Bushes. This is not a nonpartisan issue. Then we fold into the new guard with them. Bill Gates, we heard today, Bill Gates is the largest farmland owner in the United States now. Klaus Schwab, the very man that is the founder of the World Economic Forum, that said in Davos in 2023, you will eat meat only as a treat. And then Jeff Bezos. We've heard a lot about Jeff Bezos in the last week, haven't we? Nefarious agendas. They've teamed up with central banks in the global war on beef. We're coming to a time where you will not be able to borrow money unless you abide by their rules. Fiscal predators, BlackRock, Vanguard, Rabobank. We hear a lot about Rabobank in agriculture. Multinational corporations. You know them. We heard about them already today. Cargill, ADM, JBS, all about centralization, anti-competition, global control, and believe it or not, intelligence services. This is a big one that's just come on. AI. What is AI going to do to us? AI is big. There are ESG. If you don't know what ESG is, environmental social governance. It's the triple bottom line of sustainable development. Artificial intelligence is going to be infiltrated into that, commingled, and now you have new businesses coming up, like More Global. This is AI-driven tattletelling. You are going to have to abide by the rules. All of these elites are at the very top of the global food chain, right? They control the global environmental, financial, political, and social structures. Sustainable development. They're all plutocrats. You know what that is? That means the people with the money get the control. They believe in a single body of planet governance. They're all globalists. No way is there going to be borders. They don't want borders. We've seen that happening. They believe in population control. Eugenicists. They're all eugenicists. I just saw an article today. Jeff Bezos and population control. Okay? They believe that your standard of living must be sacrificed at what we've heard for generations, the New World Order. They get to eat the steak. You get to be the serf that creates the steak, right? Okay, well, here's some of those elites. Nathan Rothschild. We heard this once today. I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply, right? But he is not to be outdone by our own David Rockefeller, who says, some even believe we are a part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. That's old. Triple bottom line of sustainable development. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it. Oh yeah, that's the old guard. Let's listen to the new guard. Klaus Schwab.
History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever.
In times of crisis, the role of government. In the United States, our government's role is to come from the bottom up, from you up to the top. He's talking from the top down. He talked about the role of government in crisis. How do we get control of the people? Through crisis. We see this time and time in agriculture. So at the very top, we have the global elite or the global cabal, right? They have to have foot soldiers. They have to have somebody to implement this plan. Walks in the United Nations. I'm sure everybody here has heard of the United Nations. International intergovernmental organization tasked to incrementally and regionally implement this new world order we talk about. Their real job is to subvert national sovereignty and integrate the triple bottom line through sustainable development. Okay? They partnered up with the World Economic Forum, which is a non-governmental organization. These people selected themselves to create the model that you will abide by. We hear about it a lot through the sustainable development model of multinational corporations, stakeholders, regional governments, civil society, right? It's all interwoven. The World Economic Forum advocates ending private property and meat taxation. We've seen meat taxation already in the European Union. What is that doing? It's putting people out of business, right? This all happens incrementally. So, at the very top, you have the global cabal and their foot soldiers, the UN and the World Economic Forum. And those two have to have their own foot soldiers as well. By the way, the United Nations is on record of saying raising livestock has brought us to the verge of catastrophe, which goes back to what Klaus Schwab said, crisis. Eat the bugs, right? They won't be outdone by the World Economic Forum. They say, Klaus Schwab said, our taste for meat is endangering the planet. I submit to you today, we need more meat. We need more ranchers, more cattle. Their foot soldiers are global intergovernmental organizations, right? Pretty easy. The World Bank. What did the World Trade Organization do to MCOOL? Decimated us, right? 2015. Anybody remember that? What did the World Health Organization do to us during COVID? Put your mask on. Don't gather with your family. Don't go to town. They had the control. Global governmental organizations, the European Union, we just talked about that. What happened in Ireland? They killed 40,000 head of cattle to climate change. They took farms and ranches back. New Zealand, same thing. Non-governmental organizations, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, money, money, money. It drives everything. Source is Open Society Foundation. Jeff Bezos' Earth Fund. Anybody not hear about the American Angus Association partnering up with Bezos' Earth Fund in the last 2 weeks, taking $4.5 million to study efficiency? Do we really think that that happened? By the way, the guy who created the survey here is here today at RCAF for the first time ever, Brian Palmer. Stand up, Brian. These partnerships are killing us. Incrementalism. Environmental, non-governmental organizations like the World Wildlife Fund, I've been talking against them for years. The Nature Conservancy, the Environmental Defense Fund. Anybody know what Data Republican is? Data Republican is a young lady who I believe is deaf and maybe blind too. Created this website to track federal dollars into the system. Just yesterday, she found the tracking of federal dollars from the federal government to the World Wildlife Fund to the tune of $25 million. The World Wildlife Fund funneled that money to the Los Angeles riots. On the other side of that, the Nature Conservancy received $125 million that was funneled to the Los Angeles riots. The No Kings movement, I don't even know what that is. Corporations, Cargill, Tyson, McDonald's, Nestle, Impossible Foods. We talked about McDonald's earlier today. They kind of have to sit on the fence. But they were a founder of the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, one of the co-founders. Who's done more damage to the American health than that company? Nobody. And yet they say sustainable beef is what you have to produce and consume. And then you have radical ideologues, right? Was there anybody in green hair in here? These are the kids that you go to, what is that, all-natural food store? Whole Foods. You go to Whole Foods and you get all this all-natural food, and you go up and you pay for it, and the lady checking all this all-natural food out is green-haired, piercings, tattoos all the way up. Anything but all-natural, right? It's a fork-tongued.
The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization is planning to call on the United States to cut down on its meat consumption. The UN considers America as one of the nations that overconsume meat. The recommendation is reportedly in an effort to lower greenhouse gas emissions. FAIR Initiative, which provides data to address risks in the food sector, estimates food system emissions make up a third of greenhouse gas emissions. And
see the propaganda? That's old. That's old. World Wildlife Fund. And yet we've got ranchers in the northern plains partnering up. Why? Money. That's why. If you wanted to save your ranch, if you want to save the environment, you'll do it on your own. You don't need that outside money. Excuse me. How does the war on beef rage? Well, it rages through climate change. That's the crisis, right? They say cattle are leading to anthropogenic climate change, which is man-made. They say cattle have the highest carbon footprint. But we know through our own science and experience that proper grazing practices actually reduce and replenish our carbon footprint. Cattle can save and heal the planet. They have for generations. That's the way God designed it. We need more of them. Cattle have the highest methane emissions. Beef production in America, this is just nonsense. Beef production in America is responsible for actually less than 2% of agriculture's 9% in America. They say cattle are destroying rangelands and depleting natural resources. The reason there's no cattle in the West and the West is on fire is because there's no cattle in the West. That's why. That's what's happening. This land was created to be used. They say cattle burden food supplies and create hunger. We know that cattle upcycle non-edible forage and create nutrient-rich protein, which leads to what? National security. Food security is national security. In his book, The Road to Ruin, James Rickard says, climate change is a convenient horse for the elites to ride in the implementation of the New World Order. Nothing new. The story, it goes on and on. 1989, the United Nations predicts disaster if global warming is not checked. 1989. What is that, 36 years? We're long past that. Entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels. I'm staying right here in Deadwood. I'm going to gamble it all away. It's funner. The war on beef rages through sustainable development. You've heard me talk about this a lot. The Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, the U.S. Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. This is all driven by the United Nations Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock, GASL. You can look it up. It goes totally opposite of what we are in America. This is top-down governance. I've told you, we're bottom-up. You know that. We're local to national. It's implemented by self-selected stakeholders from NGOs and E-NGOs. We see the World Wildlife Fund, the Nature Conservancy, Environmental Defense Fund, Bezos Earth Fund, sticking into agriculture. They set production standards in order for you to enter the marketplace. You will abide by these rules, or you will not enter the marketplace. Ask the soybean producers in Brazil, who had to be a member of the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Soy to sell into the European Union. Many, many, many did not get to sell, and many, many ended their own lives. Third-party data verification through the traceability supply chain. We've talked about this. We're fighting against the EID. You learned from Jim Mundorf with Lonesome Lands, measure, monitor, report, and verify. The most dangerous of this is the verification, the third-party verification, which you would pay for. The reason it's dangerous is because it's subjective to whoever is above you and their creation of the rules. That's why it's dangerous. So at the 2023 SDG Summit held on our own soil in New York City, the United Nations adopted the following policy: a global digital infrastructure, universal safeguards to RFID, EID. We talked about this yesterday in our meeting. How is this EID deal going to be rolled out? It's already mandatory on certain cattle, right? Food systems transformation. I think it was Brett Kinsey coined the term production and consumption control. That's sustainable development. That's communism. They are now doubling down and using these very common words. Nature driving economic transformation. Do you remember last year when we helped American Stewards of Liberty defeat the natural asset companies? Yeah, go right into that. This is what it's about. That's not over. That's coming back. Form local coalitions by 2030. In other words, they're coming from the top down to your community, and you've probably already seen it in the plains, right? We're seeing a little bit of it. We're behind in the plains in our small towns, but it's coming. The power of data. Measure, monitor, report, and verify. It's all about collecting your data, which is nobody's business. And transforming education by 2030. Greening education. I didn't know what that was, but that is literally educating our youth on the Green New Deal. Digital learning, education and inclusion, DEI. That's Eric Groper's area of expertise. You may have seen this. This is the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We talked about this 10 years ago. There was 5. Now there's 17. Go through them. They look pretty good. We get to number 5, gender equality. You get down there to number 11, sustainable cities and communities. Do you know that's what's being built now? If you go to Denver in a new suburb, houses are 5 feet apart, no grass, no place to park a car. Near shopping centers, you're going to walk or ride a bike all the way. That's sustainable cities, smart cities. Look at number 12, responsible consumption and production. I've been preaching about that for a long time. The war on beef continues to rage through infiltration and collusion. I don't mean to insult anybody here today, but our institutions are corrupted. I went to college, I got a degree. I thought it was a pretty good degree, and then I got home and my dad said, "Can you be any dumber?" I'm like, "Yeah, I really can." They infiltrate into our government system, local, state, federal. Anybody ever hear of the Sustains Act? Glenn Thompson, Republican from Pennsylvania. The Sustains Act prioritizes public-private partnerships, and it gives rulemaking power. It bypasses Congress and gives rulemaking power to agency heads. So in other words, Secretary Rollins can create whatever rules she wants, and you have to abide by it. That's the Sustains Act. It's unconstitutional, number 1. But public-private partnerships, you're going to hear it more and more, they're saying these are good things on a local level. if you have a public-private partnership that does good things for your local level, you have a public-private partnership that does just the opposite. That's why it's dangerous to have them. You can't have the good or the bad. Outside money influences direction of policy in government. So if the World Wildlife Fund is putting $500 million into your state land board, where do you think they're going? They're not going to listen to you. They're going to listen to the money and the power, right? We've heard about the Partnership for Climate Smart Commodity Program. We voted Trump in to end all this. He did. He ended it. He ended the title. They renamed it Advancing Markets for Producers. They did go through this, and they have taken some money away. You know, the Colorado Department of Agriculture got $25 million through there. They took that back. I don't blame them. Take it back. Take it all back. But the Partnership for Climate Smart Commodity Program was, you know, to push the climate lie into institutions. Your media, Farm Journal, get $40 million to push the climate lie. South Dakota State University ended up getting over $90 million to push climate change into their facility, into their institution. I don't know. I'm confused on it because I thought in civics, when the government paid a media company, that was communism. It just felt that way. Maybe I was wrong. They infiltrate into corporations, both global and national. We saw, you know, the New York Stock Exchange admitted in just on the 13th, JBS, you could buy their stock for $13 just last week. ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, one of the biggest in the world. Their former CEO, Dwayne Andreas, who, by the way, Dwayne's dead, so we can talk about him. He says, those who control the global food system have the ultimate in economic power. We've talked today about ending this corruption. We have to take their money from them. It's pay to play. Colleges and universities. Me and my wife have a 33-year-old, and she went off to Texas Tech University, which I thought was a fairly conservative university, and she came back a raging liberal. And we're still trying to pull her out of that. It was a surprise to her when she got a job and she had to pay some taxes. She's like, what is this all about? And her mama says, welcome to the Republican Party. And listen, this ain't about Republican and Democrats. It's about learning, right? But these colleges and universities are very powerful. The social structures in them are in the pits. And I have a really smart little boy, and I hope he doesn't go to college. I would rather him go out to the ranch. In 2017, our friend Kimmy Lewis proposed a bill, just a placard, beef placard bill in Colorado, 2 years in a row. JBS USA teamed up with Colorado State University to create the Global Food Innovation Center, and they lobbied a beef placard bill that had to be written on a small recipe card saying this is USA beef in Colorado, and they came out fighting like hell against that. Money. Trade organizations. We've heard it, the American Angus Association. We got to sit at the table. I think that is the dumbest thing people can say. We got to sit at the table with them or they'll eat us. I'm telling you, my mom and dad didn't let them kind of people sit at our table. I've heard it time and time again from my NCBA member friends, which are dwindling quickly because they don't like me no more. They say, be likable. I'm like, I'm trying. They want you to sit at the table with them. Sit at the table. What does that mean? You ever heard of the Food and Agriculture Climate Alliance? Jim Mundorf exposed that here recently. That is an alliance of 98 food and agriculture organizations, everyone from the NCBA to Farm Journal, Ducks Unlimited, World Wildlife Fund, every one of them that came together to push sustainable development. So I want to give you a little lesson in infiltration, right? So our friends over at the other nation's largest trade organization decided to have their keynote speaker speak on sustainable development in 2023 in Florida. Their keynote speaker was this gentleman on the left, your left, a guy by the name of Professor Miles Allen. He is the program lead at the Environmental Change Institute at the University of Oxford in England. Now, the Environmental Change Institute would just be, your sustainable development area of your college or university. But he's the head of that. He's the program lead. He spoke on sustainability in the beef industry. This man is a vegan, speaking to the nation's largest beef cattle grassroots trade organization in the United States. And I'd heard about him, but I'd also done some studies on this gentleman to your right, Dr. Marco Springman. He's the senior researcher in the same institute, Environmental Change Institute, University of Oxford. Him and Miles Allen are very good friends. Marco Springman is a vegan activist. He's a vegan activist. That's all I'll put there. And he did a red meat study on the health effects of Americans eating beef in 2017 or 18. And he found all these problems, what it costs the medical industry, how many people were dying from the red meat, right? That study was published by the Public Library of Science, which is a nonprofit journal that was co-founded by Patrick Brown. Patrick Brown is the CEO of Impossible Foods, our very first fake meat company. Patrick Brown says plant-based products are going to be completely replaced going to completely erase animal-based products in the food within the next 15 years. That's our mission. That's transformation is inevitable. Why is a grassroots organization promoting this kind of garbage? I'll tell you why. Pay to play. That's what it's about. So they've got to take a stand, right? We've got to take a stand. That's what incremental infiltration does. The war on beef rages through, this is what I love, private property rights. Conservation bribery is at the highest level in the history of our nation. We've seen it with the 30 by 30, the America the Beautiful, Executive Order 14008. We now have a second American Serengeti coming to Colorado. Through public-private partnerships, we've talked about that. State Land Board in Colorado teaming up with the Nature Conservancy, but taking land out of production, buying land. We have courthouses that are only open 3 days a week because we have no tax base to keep them open. We're starting to see public-private partnerships. We saw this with the EID movement when the Cattlemen's Beef Board teamed up with NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman show, and that was sponsored by the FSA, Farm Service Agency, and the NRCS to promote RFID, EID, and tell us how great it was. They use animal rights and environmental extremism. Colorado's Governor Polis just signed House Bill 1332 into law. That would create a group of 19 or 21 people who is going to sit down and evaluate the state land board decisions. And they're going to evaluate revenue of the state land board, which all of that revenue is to go to the school children, and they're going to balance it with, not production, conservation. On the heels of that, a ballot initiative is in committee right now. It's been heard. It's called the Colorado Wildlife and Biodiversity Protection Act. Would create another group of 9 people that would take statutory control of all lands, including private property in Colorado, based on the state, and they can dictate what you can do. They have power to implement endangered species, location, and this new group of 9 people formed would not include, and it says this on the ballot initiative, would not include farmers and ranchers, loggers, miners, or energy extractors. Who does that leave? And just Friday, Colorado State Land Board unanimously appointed an extreme environmentalist who believes in wildlife corridors and rewilding to be their new executive director. 2 million surface acres in Colorado are at risk of being taken out of production. 2 million. If you don't think they don't have the money, you're wrong. In 2022, animal rights extremists raised $800 million. In 2023, the World Wildlife Fund alone, $469 million. Why are we partnering up with these people? There's a new partnership in southern Montana between a group of ranchers and the Bezos Earth Fund. You're fixing to see it. But you see these public-private partnerships, if you can see behind the words, at one time, Your Beef Checkoff partnered with the World Wildlife Fund. This is the tax that you're forced to pay into the world, going into the World Wildlife Fund, which has said cattle are killing the planet. I don't know. Not much makes sense to me anymore. You've seen this before. The Biodiversity Wildlife Corridor map that has recently resurfaced. So this is from 1993. This is a big deal.
If we don't get this straightened out, we're going to cover the American West with pavement and plows, and there will be nothing left for anybody. My family has been in Montana since early 1900s. My grandfather homesteaded in 1913. We've been here a long time. Ranchers don't change very often, but times have changed and we understand far more about our environment. Everything we do influences the landscape, the wildlife. We are restoring landscape health to what it was during the homestead era, where it was just too many people, too much farming, too much grazing. They didn't have the tools that we have today. There's some animosity against the ranching and the livestock industry, but ranchers are, at the end of the day, conservationists.
$90 million to that group. $90 million. Now, you tell me the Bezos Earth Fund doesn't have power over them. They do. You may have remembered earlier this year with the mod case. Big deal. And we were at RCAF, we were very happy. I mean, Carrie Stedheim put us onto the story. Eric Groper, Brett Kinsey went out there. They called me and said, hey, we got to work on this with these people. This is egregious. And what we've seen in that was this power from agencies. This is public-private partnership power that decided that these people, there was something more going on here, right? And they want this land. So they charged them separately for being producers. This is the power that we have given them, and it's very dangerous. So if there's anything I can tell you today about the importance of private property, and I saw somebody with that on the back of their shirt over there, it promotes the rights of the individual. We are a nation of liberty lovers. The difference between freedom and liberty is the individual, right? It ensures the distribution of power, and it guarantees resource access. I submit to you today, this is all about the land. Who is going to have access to the land and its natural resources? Freedom and property rights are inseparable. You can't have one without the other. Somebody over there has that shirt on today. There he is, right there. That's right. So why does the war on beef rage? It's simple, collectivism. It's to replace private property with public ownership and communal control of the major means of production and the natural resources through collectivism. See, to get control of you and of the consumer, They had to create a crisis. When I was in school, it was global or acid rain, right? Acid rain, and then it was, some of you guys are old. Okay, my mom's here, so in her day, it was global cooling, maybe? I don't know. I don't remember. Global cooling, acid rain. Then there was global warming. Nobody signed on to that bullshit. You know why? Excuse my language. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Mom. Because it was that. Nobody. So they had to come up with something. Climate change. And we've dumbed down the people across the globe to have to believe something, to be scared about something. The crisis was climate change. But then we had to make them feel good to get on board with us. That was sustainable development. That was their solution. It's production and consumption control. It's collectivism. It's all about the land. That's where we're at. So how do we win the war on beef? It's pretty easy. We reclaim what we got from God, our American values. Life, liberty, and property. We become independent. If you have land, the big thing is to put your land in conservation easement for perpetuity so nobody could build houses or whatever. But you got paid for it. If that really meant something to you, you just do it because you do it. Our family has a line of succession. We've never taken a dime, but who am I to dictate what happens after I die to the next guy? That's what property rights are about. We have to defend the Constitution of the United States. We must mobilize grassroots movements. That's what we've done at RCAF USA to counter the global governance and regulatory tyranny. You often hear me say, tyranny has no loyalty, and at the end of the day, that's right. One tyrant's going to kill the other. You have to get involved with your federal, state, and local governments, commissions, churches, school boards, and organizations. I don't want to be up here. I don't even know how I got up here. Jaden or Groper made me. We got to do it. We have to end corruption, decentralize our food systems. We have antitrust laws we can use to do that. Mike Calicrate is one of my heroes. I love that man. And we don't agree on everything politically, but I'm going to tell you something. He has the most powerful quote in the history of our industry, and that is, break them up. It's that easy. Break them up. We must oppose policies that entrench corporate capture, federal, state, and local overreach, and ESG mandates, the triple bottom line. We have to support legal efforts to end unconstitutional land grabs. If you are from Colorado right now, you need to be calling your representatives. We need a bill to stop the state land board from buying more land. No more government buying land. Hold on, Jaden. Return to mandatory country of origin labeling. It's probably the most important. We have to do that for our consumer. We need to honor them. And we're the only ones that can do that by ensuring they have the freedom of choice. Mandatory country of origin labeling is not a mandate of a freedom taker, it's a freedom maker. That's why it's so important. We have to create and support legislation. You yourself have to draft, sponsor, and help pass that legislation on every level. Protect your homeland. Protect them from the coming power lines people are calling me about. Protect them from the Forest Service, like what happened to the Maud family. We have to come together and protect them, but it's all based on the Constitution. The most important thing we have to do is buy American. Demand it. Support your local small business. Up front, it's going to be more expensive. Down the road, you're going to save your family and community. We have to reinvigorate these local and regional food systems. I'm not saying we don't need large producers. We do. We have a lot of people to feed. But this movement created by RFK is a good, wholesome movement that returns us to liberty, freedom, property rights, and health. And I believe in it. This is what this web we're talking about today looks like. Our friend Andrea Hutchinson drew this 20 years ago. And then I presented my War on Beef presentation to her, and she says, "You're not going to believe this. Look at this piece of paper." In the middle of it, create crisis, solve crisis, sustainable development. At the very top, the global elite. I'm pretty proud of my little boy. So I want to leave you with this.
Liberty's plea. Okay, ready? To the flag of this nation and the life you live free. To the red, white, and blue and the greatest of thee. To the nation whose call is liberty's plea. May we never forget
the American dream.
That's powerful stuff. Thank you. In the 1700s, there was a war that was going to be waged between France and England. And England was afraid the French were going to invade. And Theodosius wrote this war ballad called The Song of the Day. And it compared the English beef eaters, the English were big beef eaters, to the French culinary fine food eaters. In that song it says, "Their people slaves of power and pride, fat beef and freedom are denied. What realm, what state can happy be when wanting beef and liberty? I submit to you today that as long as there is beef on the land, we will be a free nation. But if we partner up with these people who are our enemies, and they have said so, and they are doubling down, we will not be a free nation. They will take it off the land. You own the land, protect your property rights, protect your family, your community, and protect your state." Thank you.